Hi, and welcome. My name is Maurice, and I run a blog called latentlifestyle.com. Today, this Evernote tutorial is about organizing structures. As you can see, over the last couple of tutorials, we've been putting a whole load of notes within Evernote. And on the left-hand side, you can see all the titles, and on the right-hand side, the note that's being displayed is the one with the grey box on the left, where it says Topics for Notes Yesterday. It's the next boxes that I need to talk about today, and we really need to talk about how we're going to organize our notes. It's best to have some kind of a structure right from the beginning. It's going to make your notes a lot easier to find, and it's going to make something that's useful to you. So it's this that we're looking at here. How do we organize this so we can find our notes over and over? Evernote allows us to make our notes searchable, retrievable, and ordered in whatever way is personal to us. So here are some of the styles. There's the first one, which is we're going to just take all our notes, we're going to keep them only in one folder, and when we need them, we're just going to keep turning to search, and search will find it for us. Evernote has one of the best search functions that I know of. It searches your headings, it also searches within your note, and it even searches the documents within that note. I mean, what better way of searching your notes can you get? Just throw everything into one place and find it. And number two, we are looking at notebooks. Notebooks is where you can store your notes within a particular file place. So you can structure these files. You can have a number of files for each thing. So maybe it happens to do with medical records. Maybe you've got something to do with taxes. You want to keep them all in one place. For those individual things, break them up. You don't all want them in one container. Notebooks might be the way for you. Some people prefer to tag their items and have lots of multiple tags, and I'll show you the benefits for having tags over them. But I think generally what occurs is most people use a combination of both, and we'll look at those today. So let's go with our first one. Taking your notes, putting them all in one place, you just keep adding notes, more and more notes to Evernote until you have a whole pile, and every time you want to go and retrieve something, we're going to go to the search function. By now, you probably would have received an email from Evernote talking to you about search, and it should look something like this. To make this a bit more useful to us, let's go across to Evernote and let's go and have a look at what this means by sticking them all into one place. Alright, I've got my web page up here. It's evernote.com, and I've also typed in the HTTPS. I'm making sure that there is the S there to make sure the secure site. I'm going to do this just a couple more tutorials just so we all know where we're going. You can sign in here. The other option you can do is if you click the menu and you can go and sign in there. And that's what we're going to do right now. We're just going to sign in again. Make sure that you use your email that you used before. And as you can see, it's already coming up with what I need. So I'll put that in. And my password. So this is the way that we were set up yesterday with all our notes that we put in. Hopefully by now you've also written down around about 20 notes, and they should just be stuck in to your account in some random order. Now I said to you that you could just shove them in anywhere. You will find that every single note that you've done so far has ended up in a notebook which is created when you first start off, and that is called First Notebook. So if we look down here where it says Notebooks, when we click on Notebooks, it will show us what notebooks we have. And here is our first one, our first notebook. The only other notebook we have here is trash. If I go and click First Notebook, it takes us back to where we were before. The only difference is it's given us our title at the top, and it's given us who created it. That's the only difference from this. If we go into notes, it's going to show us every single note we have, and it's going to list them all there. I'm going to go over here to notebooks though, and it's this first notebook that we're going to look at. To make it nice and easy, when I click First Notebook, I'm going to go up to the little wee I at the top. It's going to give me a title, First Notebook, and I'm just going to call all this stuff. Alright, I've now changed the title of my notebook to Stuff, still leaving it as created by me, and my notebook is still hidden down here. There it is, Stuff, already changed. If I now go to my notes, you'll see at the very top my notebook title has also changed. So stuff has changed there. If I go down to movies I'd like to see, that's changed to stuff as well. That's because all these notes were in the same notebook. All right. Now, as I said to you just now, when we have all our notes in one place, and we're not really bothered about where we're going to store them, and I'm only changing that one title at there, I could just keep using the search function, and it's going to be as simple as this. I push search. I want to look for something to do with cars. As soon as I click in car and I push enter, it's going to find all the notes with the word car in it. So here we've got car, but you see it also pulled out the topics for notes, and in those topics for notes, I also have car over here. Let's try that again, just show you how fast it is. I'm going to remove car, and this time I'm going to put James. That was one of the movies I wanted to see. There's my note, immediately came straight up. If I wanted to use the word and, it's going to show me a lot more. So it's going to be a very general search if I use and. The more specific I am, the easier it is to find stuff. So I want to look for temples. But I want to be very specific about the temple I'm looking for. I want to find a particular temple within my notes. So I want to look for the Jain temple. It's going to find that over here is my note. It's already found Jain temple here, but it's also finding these other words, temple and temple. So search is very, very powerful. With an Evernote, it will search through your notes. It's not just looking at the titles or the heading, it's looking at everything. Number 2, order by notebook. Organize your notes in a particular notebook. Now, I said yesterday that this was a little bit harder for me to explain, but bear with me, it will become very clear. Your notebooks really are files. They're containers that you're going to be putting things in. If you're on a Windows computer or if you're on a Mac computer, you generally use file names and you store either other files within those file names, or you use just the one file name and you put your documents in. Let me show you something that's a little bit more graphical. Okay, with an Evernote, we get something called notebook stacks, or your main folders like you would on your computer. I'm going to call my first one House Documents, and I'm going to have one main folder called Birthdays. But in my house documents, I want to break that down even further. And on my computer, I would be able to do so. On my computer, I would have subfolders. So maybe there would be one for electricity. Maybe there's one for house insurance. I also want to break down my birthdays a bit. And then for now, I just want to have one file which is family. Now, as far as Evernote's concerned, these are all called notebooks. As soon as I start putting notebooks together, they become notebook stacks. It's very simple after that. Whatever notes I have, I stick them directly into those subfolders. This is where we want to be a little bit more careful. Evernote, as far as notebooks are concerned, and a notebook stack cannot go further than one level. And what I mean here is I have my house documents and I have my birthdays. I have my subfolders, like I had just now, but I want a subfolder within electricity, and that really is my old bills. I have all my notes as I had before, everything going again, and I want to put my old bills into the third one. Unfortunately, Evernote does not allow hierarchical stacking past one level. That's just one level of hierarchy. So be very careful when you're putting in your structure or what organizing idea you're wanting to make. There is only one level down, all right? So notebook stack can only have one level. Let's rather look at the web for this to make this a little bit more meaningful. Back here at notebooks, we already have stuff. So let's create a new notebook for. Now, some of the notes that we had yesterday had to do with my wants and wishes. So I'm going to call this something else. So it says that I must look for a notebook with a little wee plus. All right. So if I look up here in the top corner, there's my plus. So I'm going to create a new notebook, and my notebook is going to be called Someday. All right. I'm going to create that notebook. Tells me I've created it, tells me that it's called Someday, and it's all ready to go, but there are obviously no notes. I've not given any notes that title yet. All right, let's go back to my notes. And I want to look at some of the things I'd like to do. So let's see, movies I'd like to see. I'd like to see it someday. There's no particular time limit on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to where it says stuff. I'm going to change it down to someday. Now what's going to happen is that folder, that note is now going to this notebook someday. If I click over here, back to notebooks, you'll see there is now one note and I've lost one, so 17. All right, let's go back to my notes. These are all my notes, remember. See, it's not gone away from this particular list. These are all the notes that I have in that list. The next one I'm going to put into someday is going to be to do with the places I'd like to see. So here's my wish list of things I'd like to see. Now I'm going to change it again and put it into someday. Tells me that I've changed it. If I go back down here to my notebooks, someday's now got 2 notes. Stuff has now gone down to 16. All right. If I click someday, I should only see 2 notes. Just those 2 notes that I have in that notebook. So to stick with this particular notebook idea, we're keeping it all in one place. I have notes which relate to those ideas. But there are some other ideas that I would like to rather stick together. So maybe I've got things to do with passwords, maybe my goals, and there's also things which are a little bit more urgent. So we've got car services that we really want to keep. I'm going to create another one which is going to be called house items. And I create that. And it tells me that I've created this item. I'm now going to go back and I'm going to create another one. I'm going to create one called expenses. And it tells me I've created this as well. If I now look on my notebooks, I have house items, I have expenses, both with 0 notes. But what I want to do now is I want to stack them. I want to put them together because I want expenses in my house items. So if I click and hold and I drag it into this one, it's going to say, do you want to create a stack? Well, yes, I do. I'm going to call this house. You can see now that house has got a little tiny arrow. We've got one which says expenses and one which says house items. All right. If I wanted to now take expenses and try and move this into the next stack, it won't allow me to do this. That's because Evernote only allows one level down. I can't create another one which says old receipts. Go back to my notebooks. I can't put old receipts in my expenses. It will only leave it in my stack that I have one level down. If I close the arrow, you'll see that I have 3 major categories, one which has a new level, and that's it. I can't go any further. Let me go back to all my items. Now remember, I've already categorized 2 of them, and I still have some more. So let's go and have a look for some of the things I could stick in the house. All right, here it is, house expenses. I'm going to move this to a new notebook. And I'm going to stick that in expenses. Let's go and look now at my notebooks. I have house, doesn't say any number. It does say that there are 3 notebooks there. And it says that there is 1 note in expenses. Okay. If I'm going to click here on stuff, which is where all my items were stored, you'll see that slowly but surely things are moving away. All right. That's because they're all being filed in these particular notebooks and in the notebook stack. All right. Now, should I no longer want this, I can easily delete this one. So old receipts, I no longer want, and it's gone. I no longer want house items, and I can delete that too. So if I want to delete a notebook, and I push delete, it will delete all those notes within that book. All right. So be careful when you push delete. You'll be deleting all the notes that are hidden away there. Okay? So although organizing your notebooks into notebook stacks and naming them nice and orderly, there is a limitation. You can only go down one level, and a note can only exist in one place too. This is very important to note if you're wanting to have, say, one note appear in your house expenses and another note appear in the accountant's notebook. You can't do that. You'd have to duplicate the note and have two individual notes, one in your expenses and one for your accountant. So be aware that there are certain limitations when you're using notebooks and notebook stacks. Number 3 is about using multiple tags. A lot of people move over to multiple tags because you can have greater hierarchy. In other words, you can have one tag which is your main name, so whether that be house expenses, and then you could have other tags underneath that, so old receipts or old bills, maybe agreements. You can keep on going. Also, you can place notes in two different places. I'll show you what that means. I have my main note, so my main tag, and I'm going to call one of them house documents, the other one is birthdays. I have subtags, just like I had earlier, electricity and house insurance, and also one which is called family. I have my notes, and they are all going into their various places. The difference here is that my electricity agreement needs to be in two places within my organization structure. I want it to also be in a subtag, which I want it to be called old bills, and I also want it to be in electricity. Because I'm tagging these with two names, that one note appears in two different places. Let me rather show this to you. So here we are online again. I'm going to go up to my notes, and I'm going to find another idea that I want to work on. Okay, let's have a look down here. I will have my car service, and it's due. I'm going to create a tag here, first of all, for urgent. I'm going to push enter, and I'm also going to give this car tag, and I'm going to give this the tag service. All right, I've given it 3 tags. Now, if I have a new note which has to do with insurance, so let me put over here insurance details for car. Here are my details. I can do the same here, whereby I'm going to create tags for this note. So after I click done, okay. What I have now is I have 2 tags, one for car and one for insurance. Now when we go to tags, you'll see that those tags have been listed down the side here. They are always listed alphabetically, and if I was to click car, it finds both items of notes that I've already tagged. If I go to the first one, you can see it's got car at the top. And if I go to the second one, it's also got car as a tag. If I go back to my tags and I look here for servicing, there is only one note, and that servicing is for the car service. I just wanted to show you how a note can now exist in 2 places, as opposed to only existing in one. So the limitation with your notebook is I can only have this note, house expenses, in one notebook. With my tag, I can have one note existing in 2 places because I've got 2 tags. Number 4 I said was a combination of filing, and some people use the dump it all in one place, and then they end up sorting it out a little bit later into their notebooks, and they also tag the items to make their system run smoother. This is probably going to be the result of you trialing and erroring various different methods. I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to go here to my notes. Here are all my notes. I dumped them all yesterday into one place, and I changed them all into a item called stuff. So let me just go down to my notebooks here. I have a notebook called stuff, and I've got 16 notes in there. I have sorted some of those notes already, but essentially most of them are just chucked into one place. If I click on stuff, I could go through the sorting. So insurance details for my car, I would probably need to put into a new notebook. Now my notebooks only exist as far as expenses, someday, and stuff. Where am I going to stick my insurance? Maybe I want to stick them all in the house category. Maybe I want to break down the house category by expenses and add a new notebook. That is really entirely your choice of organizing your Evernote system. Whatever makes logical sense to you is really what you need to go with. And that's why I was suggesting earlier on that you try and get at least 20 to 30 notes first of all, and then begin to see what is the common theme between your notes to create your notebooks. Personally, I think the best way to go with stacking your notes for the time being is, rather than get too bound up with all these particular stacks and notes, is I'm going to put them all back into stuff. I'm going to delete house by deleting expenses, because remember, I don't want to lose any notes. I've got someday, I've got stuff. What I'm going to do with stuff is I'm going to change this one more time. So I'm going to go and open stuff. I'm going to go up here to the eye. At the very front of stuff, I'm going to be putting a hash symbol. By putting this hash symbol here, it will mean that my notebook always appears at the top of all my other ones. I'm going to use stuff as my main category for finding things. Every time I save a note, it's always going to go into stuff, and I'm going to sort it later. I'm going to have one which says someday. I'm going to have one which is to do with projects. So I'm going to click a plus, and I'm going to call this one projects. And those are the things that I'm going to be currently working on. So if I see here now, I've got stuff, projects, and someday. I'm also going to create one which is just reminders. Reminders. And they should be over here. And lastly, my final notebook that I'm going to create is one called reference. And the reference is really going to be my archive. Every time I'm finished with a particular note and I don't need it anymore, I'm going to shove it into reference. I am going to tag my notes. I'm going to leave my tags as they are right now. And as I go through my notes, you will get to see what each one is. So I've tagged this. It's in stuff. It's my insurance details for my car. I really have an option of storing it in a number of different things. I'm going to put it in reference because I don't need it now, but I do need it just to remember it later on. Let's go to my hobby. My hobby is always a project because I'm always working on it. So I'm going to stick it into projects. A new tag here called shopping, because down here I said I would like to buy some walking socks. Let's go to movies. I've already changed that to someday earlier on, and I'm not going to add any tag because it's not really important at the moment. My tasks to complete for Evernote. This isn't stuff, but actually I'm going to be sticking this in my projects notebook. The reason I'm going to be sticking this in my projects notebook is so that I can find this information, because it's something I'm working on all together. I'm also going to tag this because this happens to do with tutorials. All right. And I'm very interested in looking for music. So I need to find some music. And I'm going to add one more called outro, because I like to add new music so that people can hear new things. Now, passwords are very important. We need to try and keep our passwords for our various items, but they do fall under the reference category. It's something that I'm going to refer to every now and again. But I am going to give it a specific label, a specific tag, and I'm going to call these ones passwords. so that I can always go back and find the passwords again. All right, let's keep going. Our goal. This is something that is also a project that I'm working on, and I'm going to give this tag goal. Car service. It's in stuff. It is a project. I'm going to leave that just in projects for now because I would like to remember. This is about Martha and Martha's birthday. So this is really going to be a reference item. I'm going to stick there a new tag and reference item. I'm going to just call this one birthdays. All right. I do believe Jim was also a birthday. So we're going to stick him in reference as well. And I'm going to give him a birthday. Now, as you can see, as I type birthday again, birthdays actually came up as a tag. And I can select it by calling birthdays. Let's go down to house expenses. House expenses. This is an ongoing project because I need to see it each week. I'm going to call this expenses. And I'm going to call this house so that I know it has to do with my house. If you've got more than one house, then obviously it means that you need to make this a bit more specific. I also made something to do with food, so I'm going to put this in my reference one, but my tag I'm going to call recipe. And it was a salad, so I'm going to call it a salad. All right. The Scottish tablet. This is reference as well. I'm going to call this a recipe. And you can see it come up straight away, but this time this one is a sweet recipe. All right. My shopping list. My shopping list is something that I need to do right away, and it's a project. And I'm going to put here shopping, as you can see. My wish list of places to go. I've already changed it to someday, and I don't really need to change the new tag because I know exactly what I want to do here. House tags. All right, house task, sorry. For now, this is a project, and I'm going to leave my tags empty because I will look at that later on. My top 10 books, I'm going to leave this in reference because it is a reference. I'm just going to put books. Now, I completed these tasks yesterday, and I have two options that I can do. I can save this in reference, which is more than likely what I'm going to do, so I can refer to this later on. And I'm going to put here Evernote. And I'm going to put here tutorial, so that I know when I'm looking for my tutorial notes, I can see and I can refer back to what I looked at. This is one of the first few notes that we made earlier on, my Evernote tutorial for episode 4. Again, this is just reference because I've already finished it. And I'm going to make sure it just says tutorial, and it's going to be Evernote. Lastly, but not leastly, my shopping list is on Friday. I already did all these items. I don't need them anymore, so I'm going to delete that item. All right, let's have a look at what this looks like now. If I go to my notebooks, if I go to my main folder that I'm saving new notes in, there's nothing there anymore. If I go back to my notebooks and I go to my projects, currently I have a few things that I'm doing and that I need to keep an eye on. If I go back to my reference, these are items I no longer need to worry about. They're there and they're saved for me to remember. I can go back to them at any time. So I can change my notebooks as often as I like. I can move them around. But bear in mind, I can't hold one note when I'm using a notebook in two places. And then my someday notes are still there. And if I go back, I have some trash. If I look at my tags now, my tags are starting to build out quite nicely. And if I wanted to find a salad to make, I have a recipe for a caprese salad. Before I leave you today, there's a couple of organization systems that you might want to consider looking through in order to get a feel for how you would like to organize Evernote. I can guarantee you that if you spend a little bit of time now looking at some systems, looking at some ideas, you will have a better experience on Evernote. It's not going to make your experience worse if you don't do this, but it will improve your experience later on. Save you going through thousands of notes and trying to recategorize them into different places. The first one I'm going to suggest, getting things done, is an idea of where you store everything in one place, you deal with it, and you move on. There's plenty of information online, and if you look in the description below, you'll see the links. The secret weapon was a website that was set up for people who were using tags within Evernote to make their system flow a lot easier. And some of those ideas I've shared with you today, but if you have a look at the website, they give you a great thing. There's no point for me going through this again. Jamie Todd Rubin has dealt with this particular task over and over as he moves around his particular items within Evernote, and it might be an idea to see how he struggled and found a system that works for him. And lastly, Michael Hyatt. He's got some various systems for organizing Evernote, and maybe it might be worth looking at some of the examples from these people. As I said, links are in the description. Thank you very much for watching and taking the time to look over these organizational systems. Have a great day. Cheers.